on YouTube? This is your boy Shredded, aka the 3 Minute Gamer. So this is what I like to do. This is me. We can talk about gameplay, we can talk about games, we can talk about resolution, graphics. I don't care anything that's related to gaming. I'm always gonna be into or have some sort of interest in. And this goes now. This sums up a lot of what's going on now with graphics and resolution and how these consoles, the PS4 and the Xbox One, can't really live up to the hype of all these crazy 1080p 60 frames games, and it actually makes sense. And I think this is a real prime reason, like a primary reason on why these games can't perform to its full potential. And but let's get into this topic about what sums up. Now, I know most of you guys, if you guys don't know him, his name is The Real Hard 8 Times, and this is not really about his video, but he did make a good point. Me, I'm not very good at explaining things. I got some sort of, like, I'm a little bit articulate, but in a job setting, not really with gaming news and stuff, because I just get overwhelmed and very hyped. But let me just say, he made perfect sense when it's really, resolution graphics ain't really important. But if you have shitty textures, that's a problem. When games look like they're getting ported when they're really not, that's a problem. So, for example, you know, um, there's some games out there like what? You have Dynasty Warriors 8. You also have a few other games that were ported over. And for example, the new Watch Dogs gameplay that came out for Xbox One that was leaked, and it looked like shit. The daytime. Yes, I'm not saying just because the resolution is 792 doesn't mean nothing, because we lived off of 720p games that were great. So it does not matter. But as long as the textures were rich, 720 and 1080 doesn't really matter. Now, the textures makes a huge impact, makes a huge difference in games, because if a game is made with such horrible quality textures or mediocre textures, that's something that's unacceptable for a game, especially to sell for $60. So Harding made a point. Just because something is a certain resolution, it can still look beautiful. Now look at Rise, Son of Rome, 900p, but what is one of the best looking games on next gen. Like, the textures are so rich, everything is so smooth on that game. I think that game looks gorgeous. The blood effects, the gore, the fighting combat, everything from the shield, the armor, the textures look rich. Especially Crisis. I believe I'm not mistaken, Crytek, the Crytek engine and Crytek, the crew, developers, they're the ones who made Crisis as well, and Crisis looks beautiful. Crisis is one of the best looking games on PC and everything. Why? They use high quality textures for their games. Very high quality. It looks great for PS3, great for 360. Gameplay is trash, but you see, and that's that. They use very good high quality textures. Now, Watchdog doesn't really, for Xbox One, I'm a little bit disappointed. It doesn't look like they're using high quality textures on the Xbox One during the day. At night it looks nice, it looks beautiful. But and during the day it looks kind of cruddy. I was like, and I hope they're trolling, because that's just disgusting. Like, it looks so blurry to me. It looked like GTA 5, and I'm saying GTA 5 to me looks good. But when we're going now to like next gen, I'm expecting textures to be a little bit more, up to date, more high tech textures. I'm expecting more richer textures, more rich texture quality. Now, aside from that, I was reading an article, and it says next gen games will hit RAM ceiling on PS4 and Xbox One, Crytek believes. Now, this is what sums up the reason why these consoles can't perform that well with games running at 1080p or 60 frames. And this shut me up. This shut up a lot of other people. And it says the 8 gigs of RAM housed into the PS4 and Xbox One will not be enough to prevent developers being limited, according to Crytek. It says both machines house 8 gigs of RAM. That's 16 times more than 512 megabytes that was available on the Xbox 360 and PS3. And it says, but speaking to Gaming Bolt, Crytek's USA Engine Business Development Manager Sean Tracy reckons it's still not enough. 8 gigs of RAM can easily be filled up, but also keep in mind that developers don't necessarily even have access to all of it. And that's true, because remember when we first seen the specs on the PS4 and Xbox One, they also had an article stating how much of this RAM is being used for the OS, for the apps, and for other stuff. And Xbox One, I think, used like 3 point something or 4 point something on apps alone, on the OS and Connect included. And PS4 used, I think they said they're gonna have like 6 gigs of RAM on their games. and they use 2 gigs for other stuff. If I'm not mistaken, or maybe 4 as well. But overall, that's why people were saying how the GDDR5 RAM that the PS4 has a little bit more of an effect, a better effect on the PS4, has an advantage over the DDR3. And that's why I believe there is a problem with that, because if the PS4 and Xbox One had more RAM and can consume at least 8 gigabytes of RAM, I think these games would be able to perform well. And the reason why they lower the resolution and frame rate on most of these games are because same thing they discussed with Dead Rising 3 when it was first coming out. They noticed so much lag when they put up the textures, when everything was running smooth at a buttery frame rate with 1080p. They noticed the zombies, and the zombies were more smarter before they had to do this whole big change up where now the zombies are like retarded and shit. And because they had so much zombies, the game was lagging out. It was like getting glitchy in the game. So they had to cut back so many features that they had to go down, I think, with 720p or 900p with 30 frames. And the frame rate still, it looks jittery in Dead Rising 3. Zombies still be cutting off. It looks a little bit fucked up. And it's not because of the game. It's not because of the console as a whole. It's just mainly the RAM space on there. The graphics card is not a bad graphics card. It's a decent graphics card. It's an AMD on both platforms. But it's just the engine, it's just the RAM itself that's really cutting back on these games. And this is a problem because we're gonna have these next gen consoles are still relatively new, and I don't think Microsoft or Sony's gonna try to make a new console anytime soon. Like, that's money being wasted. That's money down the drain. If you got, you know what I'm saying? Sony, I don't believe, has enough money to try to just make a whole new console. Microsoft does, but I don't think they're going to try to do that because they put so much work into their console as well. That'll be a waste of time of 7 years in development or however long they took. Now, it says here also, for example, the Xbox One retains some RAM for the OS. Since technology progresses exponentially, we will soon find that the computational whatever requirements of games will quickly hit the ceiling of a few gigs of RAM. Meaning, if we're trying to go more next gen, and what I see as next gen is more of an expansion in games, more richer textures, and also I also saw next gen as a new way of gaming, where if we had open world games like Grand Theft Auto, I'll be able to go into like every house. I was really expecting a different experience. I'm not saying only graphics. I was also expecting a different experience with things such like that. I just love looking up stuff like this, and it's crazy because if a game is gonna come out with lower resolutions, you see, look how Titanfall managed. I'm surprised they managed, because that game, people still think it was supposed to come out for Xbox One and PC, and it wasn't. It was actually an Xbox 360 game, and they went to Sony. Sony tried to slap them in the face saying come out for the Vita. They weren't taking that. Then Microsoft paid the money to come out for the Xbox, and I think PC or something like that. But they rushed them for the Xbox One, and at least the textures look good. The textures look decent. They look good for Xbox One. They weren't bad. But for a game to come out with low resolution doesn't really matter. Okay, I understand it doesn't really matter. But you need to have rich textures. If fucking Crysis 3, even though the gameplay's whack, if Crysis 3 were to come out in 720p, the game would still look beautiful because of the textures, the environment, everything on that game, in the game, the textures. But that's the point I'm trying to make. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Comment, rate, and your boy 3 Minute Gamer, and I'm out. Peace.